Recording has started. Greetings, welcome to the No Script Show. Today I have with me a large figure on the South African landscape. People like myself and Gareth Cliff love him. The man, the legend, Mr. Herman Mashaba. Welcome to the No Script Show, sir.
Thank you so much, gentlemen, for really giving me this opportunity to feature on your show. And I'm happy to engage with you the next few minutes or whatever time available. I've got the time. I'm in prison. I'm on quarantine. So time does not really mean anything to me. So the show is yours.
Yeah, okay. The whole lockdown is putting a new meaning to state capture, just a different type of capture, it seems.
Yeah.
I think this pandemic has really changed the world and has really changed it forever. I think sometimes I say to my family, we're lucky to have lived through to see something like this. But at the same time, I'm really very fearful, really dreadful of the after effects of this the virus, because this virus it's going to pass. Whether it's going to take us another 60 days, another 6 months, it's going to pass. But unfortunately, the devastating effects of the economy are going to be so massive that I dread to see it. And every day we've got a lockdown. There's no economic activity. There's a human being out there in the world who's going to die out of hunger.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because that's one of the topics we are most concerned about, especially sort of the younger generation. Things like, I mean, there's a lot of people out there who believe that if you dare to bring up the economy, you don't care about people dying. But I think that's a false narrative, in that the economy, as you know, is people. You know, when there's an economic slump, the rates of violent crimes, things like murder, rape, divorce, breakups, drug abuse, all that skyrockets in a sort of economic slump. So I think, you know, it's not crazy to think about the economy after this event. And one of my concerns is that our government wants to, or seems to want to, print more money as a solution. And I'm very against that solution. What is your stance? I mean, I've read some of your articles, but for some of our listeners, what is your stance on what you think we should do in terms of, you know, labor laws, the economy, and all that to jump things up?
Well, I find it really very strange and unacceptable for anyone to refuse us to engage on the economic impact of this pandemic. This pandemic is a reality, and I'm appreciative of the manner in which the government has handled it. But at the same time, the government should actually have put in even a bigger team of economists and people who are interested in the economy to see how we're going to deal with the after effects. For anyone to tell me that we will deal with the economy afterwards, it's something that it's actually an insult to our intelligence. It's an insult to normal human behavior, because as human beings, God has given us these little brains to use when you're in a crisis. It doesn't mean that you deal with that crisis, but you don't deal with the after effects. So I think for me, people who are against us talking about economy are those that probably, and I'm actually quite convinced that these are the people who enjoy seeing other human beings suffer.
Right, and I think what we're seeing here is that people that have the luxury of working from home are the people that are saying, no, we should not be talking about the economy, we should only be talking about containing the virus at all costs. But me and Odin are people that are working from home. We have that luxury, but we also see the economic devastation that it can have. I mean, how does a mine worker work from home? That's the big question that you have to answer.
That is why, personally, I feel it's an insult to our intelligence. And someone like myself, honestly, like right now, I'm unemployed. I work I do whatever I do from home. I'm actually putting money in saving my personal money to save our country, because I'm aware of the devastating effects of the economy. And the problem with the South African economy is not really purely as a result of the coronavirus. The South African economy has been under attack for the last 10, 15 years. Under attack, being looted like someone who hated really something, mismanagement, corruption, all manner of evil, what was happening. And unfortunately, in the process, I think the final nail came when this international invisible coronavirus came. And we need to fix our economy. Think of what we're going to do the day when the world can actually find a solution to tackling this virus, which I know the world will find. But at the end of the day, the economic impact are going to really be massive. And look at South Africa. With all the problems of illegal immigration, look at billions of dollars of counterfeit goods being brought into this country illegally, with the full knowledge of government, because I know personally when I was the mayor, how many times I raised these matters with all the various departments, our law enforcement agencies, National Treasury, Department of Trade and Industry, that we have in the city of Johannesburg alone, we're seeing billions of goods, counterfeit goods brought into the country. This is going to lead to massive challenges for our people. It's going to destroy our businesses. We've opened our borders to anyone in the world that wants to run away from their country for whatever reason. They're here in our country, and people who did not want to really discuss those issues. Now look at it internationally. Now the South African economy, it's under junk status. So you can imagine, for us as a country, ordinarily we're talking about printing money. Print money, please ask. We don't have to go far. I'm sure we can walk to Zimbabwe to go and tell us what happens to a country when you think you solve problems by printing money. That's a beginning of destruction of the country. You build the economy of the country by producing something that, when you print money, is backed by something. Printing of money is the easiest thing anyone with not even a single brain of cell can do. You can print money, you think you're solving the problem. You print money. Money has to be backed up by something. You know?
So now, Odin, Mr. Mashaba here is touching on something you feel very strongly about when he talked about the border question. I think, Mr. Mashaba, if there's someone else that feels equally or even stronger about the border crisis that we are experiencing, or that very issue, it is Mr. Moja over here. So I think you can bite right into this, Odin.
Yeah, well, I mean, as you and I, Mr. Mashaba, we agree on the border issue. I know that and I think that you've been unfairly absorbing flack from a lot of people, from a lot of entities, a lot of organizations, because they have an issue with your strong stance on borders. I agree with your stance on borders, and I think a lot of people on the ground do. I think many of the people who are against you because of your stance on borders, who try to paint you as some sort of xenophobe or something like that, they want open borders because to them open borders means, oh, I just get cheap free labor flowing into my country. I don't think that they see the economic devastation it brings when you just flood cheap labor. And I don't think they realize also, on a more important level, the cultural devastation that it brings when you open your borders. Because I promise you, if 50 million or even 10 million South Africans flooded into Botswana, it wouldn't be Botswana anymore. And I think it's realistic to realize that open borders has consequences both for our economy and for our cultures. So, if you want to comment on that.
Well, I think fortunate enough when they started attacking me, in fact, I still remember the first day when I raised this matter on the 1st of December 2016, during my 100 days as a mayor of the city of Johannesburg. That's when I raised this particular matter. And I'm really so grateful for those people who attacked me. And I always encourage them to attack me, because the more they attack me, try and divert the attention, the more the issue actually comes into the public domain. And really and truly encourage them. And honestly, I challenge anyone. People who they've attacked me, called me names and insult me, are people who are actually benefiting out of this criminality. So I cannot really be threatened by criminality. Criminality is not going to get me to lose really focus on the real issue. South Africa since 1836, 1886, when we discovered gold and so forth. This country was built at the back of migrants, and I've always been very clear, and our constitution is very clear around this matter. South Africa, like any other country in the world, we need to build this country at the back of encouraging people of the world to come to South Africa, but not liabilities. We're not looking for bodies. South Africa is not short of bodies. We've got officially 58 million South Africans in a country where we've got almost 39% unemployment. So we're not short of bodies. South Africa is short of capital, both physical capital and the brain power. So South Africa needs to attract such people. We need them in this country. But South Africa, it is not going to be the country, for as long as I'm alive, South Africa is not going to be the country where we harbor people who are running away from their countries for criminal activity, or people who come into this country and are not prepared to respect the laws of this country, call South Africans lazy and insulters. That, unfortunately, for as long as I'm alive, my body and soul are together, I can assure you, I can only, in fact, get more resolute in dealing with these matters.
No, interesting enough, I also completely agree. I think all our stances can be summed up. It is not that we want to close the borders completely, but it's to just have South Africa needs to have its hand on the tap so we can control the flow coming in according to our needs and according to what the country needs. If the country has a shortage of doctors and we have doctors that want to move here, I think they should be welcome. But if we have an overabundance of, for example, just labor, people that are doing hard labor, then you shouldn't have, for example, just opening the borders completely, that you just have cheap labor streaming in and taking away jobs from regular South Africans. In a country of an unemployment rate of nearly 30%, I think open borders are very reckless.
Our unemployment rate, as Stats SA, our unemployment rate in South Africa right now is sitting at 39%. So I think, in fact, they're even trying to really play a PR stance with us, giving us a narrow definition of unemployment. We've got millions of our people in the late 30s, early 40s, who've totally given up on looking for jobs. So those people must be counted. So when we talk about unemployment in South Africa, let us not actually come out with a political stunt to it, that we only record the narrow definition of unemployment. Let's come out with a broader definition. South Africa's unemployment rate right now officially, states as the numbers are there with States SA, we're sitting at 39% unemployment. So every time anyone talks about 30%, it's like, please don't insult me. South Africa's unemployment is at 39%, and now I'm sure all of us are aware the last few days and weeks, people are talking about the economy of South Africa shrinking between 3 and 8%. Even at 3%, and personally, I'm not an economist, it's going to shrink even much more than 3%. So basically, within the next few months, by end of this year, the likelihood of South Africa having more people unemployed than employed are very, very, very high. And if anyone is not dreadful, is not scared of living in a country like that, there must be something wrong. Another factor that I can tell you, I'm sure all of you are aware, the numbers are there with Stats SA. South Africa right now, we're sitting, 54% of our people live below the poverty line. 54%. Now tell me, how can you expect me as a human being not to look after my children? You say, forget about your children, worry about your neighbor's children. Human beings are not really created in that fashion. We've got 54% of our people living below the poverty line. We have the responsibility first to our people. The day when South Africa is sitting at under 10%, 8 to 5%, then that's when South Africa can start saying, look, can we go and help the Indians or the Pakistanis or the Zimbabweans and whatever. But not when you are sitting at 39% unemployment currently and you are facing the current pandemic that you are sitting with, that with the likelihood by the end of this year, chances of South Africa having more people unemployed than employed. This, for me, it gives me sleepless nights.
Yeah, that I mean, what you've described there is a very sort of, to borrow from the sort of Trumpian Donald Trump sort of vein of things. He often says America first, and regardless of your policy on the man, I can't deny that I would like a leader of South Africa that puts South Africa first. Just as people say America first, I think a lot of us really care about putting South Africa first, and that's something very attractive about what you've described there.
Is this not human nature? It has got nothing to do with Trump or with me. It's human nature, that how God treated us. In fact, look at all the animals. Just do a study of all the animals. What is their first preference? Is to their families.
Exactly.
Before they can worry about anyone else. Now you can imagine us as human beings with our brain power, that we are being told by people who I don't know what their agenda is, to say, no, I must forget about myself and my children. I must worry about the man next door. I think don't insult me. It's an insult to human behavior. And what is strange about this, that South Africa is the only country in the world that is expected to operate that way. There isn't any other country that is actually pushing the kind of nonsense of legislation that these people who are benefiting out of this criminality are pushing. They expect South Africa to be a case study for criminality.
But you saw some elements of this. I think in the 90s and early 2000s, the dream or the ideal was that South Africa become like the babysitter on the continent, to become the leader on the continent, and to take care of all the countries that are struggling. But I think we've unfortunately failed in that regard, because we haven't been able to clean our own house first. But the world has expected of us to take care of the whole neighborhood, of the whole street, when we can't even take care of our family at the moment. And I think that really cuts to the core of what you are saying here, Mr. Mashaba.
On the 27th of April 1994, when I went to go and vote for the first time in my life, I was in my 30s. I grew up never thinking that one day I'll be able to have an opportunity to go and democratically vote. And I voted for Nelson Mandela. I became a proud human being. I became a proud person, where South Africa became the envy of the world. And we all looked up to South Africa to really be a model of what the world can be like. Unfortunately, I'm looking at it 26 years down the line. Nelson Mandela's party is the one that personally I believe they enjoy to see, particularly black people, suffer. Why? I honestly don't know. I really don't know. But honestly, I'm prepared to challenge them anytime, because fortunately enough, I've got enough evidence of their policies that are keeping black people poor and uneducated. Look at our educational outcomes. It's a disaster in the world. South Africa is not short of money towards education. If you look at what South Africa spends on education as compared to most of the countries in the world, but really look at our outcomes. I can tell you for poor people in public schools, because 80% of public schools in this country are dysfunctional. So if you're a poor person, you live next to Lesotho or Swaziland or Botswana, you rather take your child to a public school in Lesotho, Botswana, you'll get a better education than what you'd get here in South Africa. Just a few weeks ago, I watched a press conference by the Premier of Gauteng and the MEC of Education. They were talking about what, was it 68 or 78% of grade 4 children or youth cannot read, even in their own language. In Gauteng, guys, you can imagine if this is happening in Gauteng, what more in the Eastern Cape, what more in KwaZulu-Natal, rural KwaZulu-Natal and Venda. It's been proven, 80%. Talk to any independent the person coming academic, they will tell you 80% of public schools in this country are dysfunctional.
Yeah.
And you ask yourself why. It hurts me every day, the family members and the people who in Soweto, where their kids have to go to wake up at 3, 4 in the morning because they must go to a public school in Randburg or Sandton or somewhere else in the suburb. When the school next door to them is closing down. I thought when I went to vote on the 27th of April 1994, I thought that school in Soweto, that University of the North, where I went, these are going to be models of actually producing black excellence. Unfortunately, our people are running away from this, running into the suburbs, running into private education because government is failing them. We keep on actually rewarding 2 ministers. You can imagine our Department of Education. We split it into 2 so that we can create jobs for the comrades. And the 2 people who are running this education, and look at the outcome and how long have they been running. Basically, why I feel that it's a plan, because they are rewarded. They are delivering what the current ANC government wants. It's make sure that black kids get less and less education, because any person knowing the educational outcome of this country, how do you still have the very same people who have failed the system? You keep on having them as ministers. I mean, it's bizarre. It is criminal as far as I'm concerned.
I think a point that a lot of people are missing, I think, when it comes to the failures of the South African education system has been the horrible failure of uplifting our indigenous languages here. I mean, as an Afrikaans speaker, I can only say that or testify to the benefits of being able to learn in your home language. And I think in the 25 years since 1990, or no, it's not 26 years now, I think there should have been much more focus on uplifting all South African languages to a point where a child can, at least in primary school, get basic education in their mother tongue. I mean, the studies have proved that children learn much better in their mother tongue. And then people say, but English opens the world to us. But if you use that logic, then go tell France and China and Germany and Russia and all the big economies in the world that are teaching their children in their home language that they are making a big mistake. Good luck telling them that they are misguided and they should be teaching their children in English. So I think that failure to really uplift South African languages up to an academic standard that is world class, I think, is one of the big failures that people are missing.
Well, please ask the Premier of Gauteng and his MEC of Education. They had a press conference about 2-3 weeks ago that grade 4 kids cannot even really read in their own mother tongue language.
Yeah.
and I mean, it's tragic. It's beyond belief. And I'm happy to sit in front of the nation. And 26 years after democracy. Perhaps I think Jan van Riebeeck is responsible for this, because I think I can tell you, if there's anyone that will blame for this failure, I can tell you they'll never run short of people they can blame. They will start with Jan van Riebeeck is responsible for this.
Another thing that was touched on. No, but it's true. And another thing that was touched on there is that you pointed out that there's 2 MEC, there's 2 people for education, there's the jobs for comrades. How do you feel about the unbelievable size of our government right now? Because I'm deeply concerned about how many ministers we have for everything. There's a job for, it's crazy. I cannot believe how many ministers, deputies, everything we have. We have something like, I don't know, what is it, like 40 something people in our cabinet?
64.
The big 64 compared to the United Kingdom, the United States. How would, let's say you were in control, how would you deal with that? What do you do? How do you?
Well, just over a week ago, the president announced some of the measures to create a relief fund, and proudly said to us that the president, the ministers, and the premiers have decided for the next 3 months drop their salaries by 33%. I immediately penned down an opinion piece and said, Mr. President, please don't play a PR stunt on us, because I did a calculation over the 3 months how much they will save, 13 million rands. I said to the president, it's in writing, you can look at that piece. 13 million rands won't even feed one street in Alexander for 1 week. Because that's only safe for them. I said to Mr. President, you don't need to start off with a low-hanging fruit. Get rid of all all your deputy ministers. You don't need a single one of them. You don't need a single one of them, because if you cut with immediate effect, drop all your deputy ministers, reconfigure some of the cabinet posts, like education. Why do you need 2 ministers of education? That's why we so confused. You can save billions immediately. You can put billions of rents on the table to assist our economy. So that's why I just don't understand what the rationale. But I know and believe the president don't do that, because obviously the size of our cabinet is it's a patronage network to create jobs for the Tripartite Alliance. So if the president would try that, the following day is out of a job. And it's not about you and I, it's not about South Africa. It's actually about the president keeping his job and satisfying the Tripartite Alliance.
Right. And then now, on that note, something else that I was very curious about, and this is more of a personal question in terms of, or a more small scale question, not a governmental question. In this time of social distancing, or in this time where people are more isolated than ever and not really interacting with people even in their street, how can you as an individual give back to the community or support your community in this time? Just from your own opinion.
Well, I mean, right now, as a family, we've got track record. I've been in business, almost 36 years, official business, almost 36 years. And I was really lucky that my business was successful from day one. It is there on record over the last 36 years of being in business, my business and my family. We spend millions of money towards helping various causes and so forth. And really, to a large extent, over the last 36 years, focus on teaching our people to fish instead of giving them fish. So I think giving the money to communities and so forth, it's nothing new to me, and it's not something that I do it because someone prescribes it to me. We do it because it's something that that we are on record. South Africa knows me long before the birth of Apartheid. Probably you two guys were not yet born by the time I went into business. It's on record to really look at my businesses and my family's involvement in helping other people. But at the end of the day, we don't do it because someone is putting pressure on us. We do it, and we've been doing it for years, from the dark days of our country's history, and we continue doing this for as long as my family and I can afford it. We will do everything possible to assist our vulnerable communities.
Yeah, I think when you started, my grandfather was alive, but I wasn't quite yet. With regard to family, because that is one as the generations come along now, I see in myself and Aaron's generations, we're starting to value things like family and the community more, and that's something I see that you live. I mean, it's no secret you've been a family man for many years now, and one of the things that links to family for me in terms of crime is the issue of murder, rape, and the death penalty, which is another thing that you have been sort of slandered on or sort of attacked for by various people. Personally, if somebody attacks or murders or rapes one of my loved ones, regardless of whether or not it's a deterrent, I wouldn't want my tax money to go forward in supporting that person's lifestyle for the rest of their life, because that's what happens with life sentences. You have the stage to defend yourself on that. I do agree with you that in some cases, I was listening to a Louis Theroux documentary on gangsterism, and he's just like, some guys just got to go. We don't live in this fantasy land where you can rehabilitate anyone. But if you'd like to take the stage on that and defend yourself on that one.
Well, there's absolutely nothing to do to defend here, and I've challenged those who are against my views on the support for the death penalty. Are the very same ones? I treat them the same as the ones that actually attack me on xenophobia, and I've requested them to get all these researchers who are claiming that the death penalty is not a deterrent. I give them a simple example, and honestly, I don't have to be a rocket scientist. Even one brain cell, it's good enough for me. If you rape an 18-year-old child, or an 80-year-old woman, or a 34, whatever, my neighbor, my child, my wife, and we've got overwhelming evidence that you did it, and we put you away, you can do any research that can tell you that we put you away, that once you are gone, there's no chance of this person ever coming back to rape another person. So how can any researcher tell me that penalty is not a deterrent? Well, a person who has raped someone or killed someone, I'm talking about first-degree murder, where people actually go out and plan to go and murder someone else, and we've got evidence to that effect. How do you expect a country as poor as South Africa, with 54% poverty levels, to go and feed someone 3 meals a day, give them accommodation and human rights, when we are unable today, as I'm talking to you, 54% of our people, they battle to put bread on the table, 1 a day, 1 meal a day. In fact, this is not and I don't need any academic person to really tell me otherwise. So I think these researchers who are saying the death penalty is not a deterrent, I want them to do a research, or get others to do a research to understand all these researchers' findings who are saying the death penalty is not a deterrent. What is their motive? I think, honestly, I feel it's like, on the other end, on illegal immigration, I know for sure that majority of the people who defend this are those who are beneficiaries of this criminality. So those who defend the death penalty for such heinous crimes, I think perhaps we might find that if we can get researchers to go and do a research, are the ones who are doing this for personal reasons.
And now seeing as we are talking about crime and the issue of crime in South Africa, Mr. Mashaba, what is your stance on legal gun ownership? And I know this is something Mr. Moja also feels very strongly about. I'd like to hear your thoughts there.
Well, I think
South Africans.
For me, in a violent society like ours, with the almost collapse of our criminal justice system, I don't really see anything wrong with South Africans owning guns. Fortunately enough, I don't own one myself, and I don't have any intention to own a gun. But I think for South Africans who are willing to really protect themselves and protect themselves within the conscript of our law, I believe they have my full support. But they must understand the usage of this gun must be used within the conscript of our law. If you operate outside the law, then there has to really be consequences. So I'm a real support of people owning guns and understand the legal implications of using that gun outside the law.
I'm a legal gun owner myself, and one of the things that really disturbs me and other legal gun owners is the police minister and his drive to disarm legal, sort of law-abiding citizens in a country where, let's be honest, at this point, there's good police officers out there, but at this point, if you call the police, it's a flip of the coin. You know, for a good 20 minutes or whatever, it's you alone in that house with those criminals breaking into your house or breaking into your farm, or, you know, if you're a lady walking alone at night down a dark alley, you know, it's you and this attacker alone. And I think in all those situations, law-abiding citizens will be happy and safer with, as you say, the ability to defend themselves within the script of the law.
Absolutely. I think, you know, what a disgrace, the guys and fellow South Africans and people of the world. I've not wished to come across, maybe I've not really done enough research to look at how many times the guns were stolen at military barracks. Not
or
once.
From police stations.
How many times. Have there been any arrest? I don't know. I mean, you know, this is a country we live in where people can actually go and steal the guns at military barracks, and you expect the law-abiding citizens to be vulnerable to this criminality. I don't know. Maybe there's something I missed. Have there been any arrest of those people? I don't know. Maybe something I've missed, and I apologize if I've missed the arrest of those people, and I don't understand how come I've missed it, because something like that, someone who can imagine going to steal military equipment, I think you put a special force to go and hunt them down and actually set an example to the society. Their court case has got to be publicized so that people actually really know the consequences of actually trying with the might of government. So if I've missed it, then honestly, it's not my fault. If ever these people were ever arrested, it's not my fault. It's the government not actually demonstrating to people about the respect for the rule of law.
And yeah, that's like what I keep telling people, is that a criminal will always be able to find a gun in this country if he's really determined. But then the most absurd thing to do then is to stop a law-abiding citizen from protecting himself with a gun, because we know the criminals will always have firearms, but it's not always a certainty that every individual law-abiding citizen will have one. So you should make it sufficiently easy for someone that you can see will pass a test that will show that they understand the risks thereof, they know how to use the weapon safely, and they know how to responsibly take care of it, and when, in what situations to use it. I think there should be no barrier for that regular citizen to have something to put them on a level playing field with the criminal that they might encounter.
As I say in closing of this subject, I'm a full supporter of the gun ownership in South Africa by law-abiding citizens, and I'm against those who own their own guns illegally. For me, they deserve the harshest treatment ever.
Well, another subject I wanted to ask you about, and I mean, you've been very vocal about your support for, especially in politics, for younger people. And my question relates to younger people. A lot of people our age sort of grow up wanting to be in government and whatever. And to me, that's sort of a sad thing, because I want them to want to be in business and technology. Especially I myself, I'll admit I'm biased. As you know, I'm a computer science graduate. But I happen to know that the world is changing very quickly with advances in technologies, automation, artificial intelligence, robotics, genetic engineering. It's making it cheaper to make food and all sorts of products. And for me, it seems, at least from my education, it seems the government is doing our young people a disservice, all our young people, black or white, by having them be obsessed with owning a farm. That's the only thing, that's the only good thing in the world. Where I would love to see the government encourage people to learn how to program, because the world runs on code at this point. I mean, look, there's not, and that's not to slander farming or farmers. It's difficult work. But if all they want is to own this farm, I'm very worried. If all they want is that, I'm very worried about our young people and their future. Because sure, you could get farm and do all that, but the rest of the world is going to be running on a whole new digital economy, and we are going to be left very far behind in the dust. So does the People's Dialogue have any stance on that, or have you given any thought to that or anything like that?
Let me tell you, Odin, I think technology, it's more than crucial, it's critical. Even when you tell me today, can you really do commercial farming without technology? Can you? So anyone without technological the support and knowledge, there's just no way that you can run a farm where you can actually even feed yourself, not even talking about feeding the nation. So technology is so crucial for anyone wanting to go into farming. You want to become a commercial farmer. A commercial farmer has to really be educated in technology, be educated in finance, because running a farm, it is business. So if you don't really even know a simple thing called an income statement, how are you going to really run a farm? Unless you want subsistence farming. But now, if we're going to be taking our farms to really convert them into subsistence farming, then we're going to really have food shortages, food risk in the country going forward. So yes, I think we need a blend of everything. That is why for me education is so critical. That is why for me the failure of our government to provide education to our people, it's one of those sore things. It hurts me and hurts me deeply. It's criminal. I remember that probably about 10, 15 years ago or whatever, when I began to realize how the ANC government was failing our people on education. My wife and I, we were in Plaid on holiday, 1 month holiday, long before I even thought I'd one day become a public servant. And it was the first week in January or so. Every morning we'd go out and walk. So as we were walking past one of the shops, one black woman came out of the shop excited after seeing their child on the paper. It was matric results coming out. So as we were walking past, I said to my wife, I said, my goodness, I think I said obviously I'm not sure what type of results the student got, but chances of getting decent results are very slim. It's not about just really being the paper with this 30% pass rate that ANC is promoting. So I said, it pains me to see this woman celebrating the pass of their child, which is great for any parent to celebrate. But I said, what if it's a 30% pass rate that this child will today appear in the paper that will celebrate this as a family? But this child might not get an opportunity to go to university. She might not even qualify. Even if they qualify to university, it is proven that more than half of our kids first year in university, they actually don't make it. Not even talking about whether they will have the money to go to university. Not even talking about will there be space for them in universities, because if you look at our population growth over the last 26 years, but at the same time, we're still sitting literally with the same universities that we inherited from the Apartheid regime. So you can look at the absolutely no focus on the big picture. And that these people are not aware, honestly, I would challenge that. For me, this is deliberate.
It is, I think, a big indictment of the ANC when you look at the cold, hard fact that Verwoerd built more black universities than the ANC in total. I think that's an absolute indictment of the current regime. But then the other thing that I think that needs to be focused on is this whole myth that has been sold to South Africans that if you get a degree, then you will be successful. I don't think that is true. I think you can become an excellent contribution to society. You can run a business without a degree, but then your basic foundational academics need to be right, primary school and high school, but we're not seeing that. And I think the discontinuing of technical schools is the big problem, where now parents will rather encourage their children to go study some useless degree rather than getting education in something technical where they can become a very good plumber or electrician or people that used to be respected in society, but now today are looked down upon by people that have a master's degree. But even if that master's degree is in something absurd or ridiculous or useless. And I think that's the myth that we need to dispel as South Africans, is that a degree does not guarantee you success. And you are not a better person or a smarter or more useful person to society just because you have a degree, because that degree could be in something useless. So I think we need to make the technical professions great again. Give some respect back to the good plumbers and the good electricians and the good builders and the people that know what they're doing in their trade, but it may not be something as respected as, for example, an academic or a doctor, but they are excellent at what they do, and I think that demands respect as well.
Well, fortunate enough, you're raising the subject matter that is close to my heart. I am on record quite extensively over many years about the need for vocational training, of artisan training. We need bricklayers, we need electricians, we need plumbers, and so forth. We need professional nurses. I know my sister trained at Baragwanath Hospital with her friends, and majority of them are working all over the world, in England, in Canada, and so forth, and they are well respected. They earn the good monies. We've lost them, and all of a sudden we put our kids to study nursing, whether it's private, some of them fly-by-night type of training programs that kids are not needed by anyone. If you look at the kids that, the nurses that this country trained during the apartheid days, I can tell you there's a reason why the world went to grab them immediately. Gave them offers, could not really refuse. It took us time for us to actually convince my sister to actually stay behind, because we needed here. But her friends, some of them have already acquired citizenship of Canada, Australia, or England. About beginning of January, I was in London, and I had a session with quite a few of them who normally I meet when I'm in the UK, where some of them, they actually love this country. They thought that retirement is going to happen here in South Africa. I can tell you that night I had a session with them that says, look, forget about coming back to South Africa. I'd rather retire in this cold weather, because fortunately enough, I'm now a fully qualified British citizen. My kids are British. I'm not going to really come to a country where literally where my life is not it's not guaranteed, that I might be raped as an old woman and nothing's going to really happen to me. And these are the lived experiences of people. And when you raise this with our government, they will, some people say, no, those who want to go, let them go. I mean, how simplistic can one actually look at it? Every time when people say, look, you know what, I can't stay here, I'm leaving. That's why I'm really so excited and proud of this I'm Staying initiative. But at the same time, we've got to be realistic. For as long as we've got the ANC government in power, things can only deteriorate. And the day when this collapse, which is imminent, if it does happen, I can assure you to fellow South Africans that Zimbabwe would look like a Sunday school picnic. So honestly, Zimbabwe would look like a Sunday school picnic where South Africans are not going to really take things lightly like how the Zimbabweans did, because Zimbabweans could run to South Africa and other parts of the world. Tell me, for us as South Africans, 58, whatever number it is, tell me where are we going to fly to, to swim to Madagascar or Mauritius or some, where are we going to go? To Lesotho? Are we going to Lesotho or Swaziland? So for us as South Africans, because if you collapse this economy, you collapse this country, you are putting us in a corner. We've got nowhere else to go. So that is why I'm actually quite scared about this. But I think my involvement with the People's Dialogue for over 3 months, I think has opened my eyes to another dimension of how great and positive South Africans are. But at the same time, they are aware of the risk. but South Africans are they're still confident that we will remove ANC out of power and put in a government that can actually be accountable to them. It's unfortunate that this COVID-19 has delayed the release of that report. Every time I read that report, I actually cry inside, because these are evidence coming from South Africans. We managed to reach 33 million South Africans. I mean, it never thought we'll reach 500,000. We reached 33 million South Africans. We've had 2.5 million South Africans who've actually contributed to the kind of new South Africa that they anticipate. So yeah, one of these days when things are normal, that document it's going to be a public document, because it's South Africans who've contributed to this. So I'm excited about this. There's still hope, but we're on the verge.
And I'm sure in this time of lockdown, you and everyone that is working on the People's Dialogue aren't sitting on your hands. You are still working in this time as well. So maybe this time where you have more free time, it could be also a blessing, not just a delay.
From time to time, every day I have this mixed feeling that perhaps this pandemic it's a blessing, but at the same time I look at it from a practical point of view.
Right.
Why destroy the country? Why destroy our economy? Why kill so many people in the process? But really hope that it's going to be our wake-up call. But at the same time, let's hope that it should not really drag on for much too long, because on a daily basis, on every day that we've got this lockdown, more and more of our people are getting desperate. More and more businesses are going to not be able to come back and operate as normal. I think this morning I was dealing with the cases of people still contacting us through the People's Dialogue. Regulation of government under the president said they're going to be assisting all businesses regardless of your race and so on. And people are complaining that white-owned businesses do not qualify. And I said, but the regulation by the president said you've got to help everyone. So, and I sent this on social media and said, anyone who actually comes out with that kind of a regulation that white businesses don't qualify, actually it's a direct punishment of black employees of those companies. Honestly, basically what you are doing, you're not punishing white people. You are punishing black people who are employed by those businesses, because they're the ones who are going to lose their jobs. So yes, this white person will lose his business. That's fine. In business, you always lose, but they will find an alternative. But what about the thousands or millions of black South Africans who are employed by this business? So anyone who comes out with that legislation during this period, honestly, you are punishing poor people. That is why it actually confirms my theory that the ANC government wants to see black people poor and uneducated. Yes, we need inequality. We need to deal with the inequalities of the past to get black people into business. There is no doubt about it. It is not something there's not. But you cannot use a period like this to then obviously really punish, because the failure of the current BE policy is not as a result of anything else than the situation of the ANC. They have failed for the last 28 years, including coming out with laws for broad-based black economic empowerment. Go and study, do your research to look at, has ANC ever been interested in broad-based empowerment for someone who's not politically connected? That is why they have encouraged the black youth in the universities and so forth to join the ANC, because once you join the ANC, then you get nearer to, you've got a good chance of one day being the ANC leader and so forth and whatever. It's got absolutely nothing to do with saving society, which is really quite unfortunate that the youth get involved in politics not to save society. They are getting into business because they're getting next to the resources. You look at the type of lifestyle. Investigate any ANC leader since 1994 in particular. Those who joined ANC because in 1994 they were young and they joined ANC afterwards, and today they're holding senior position. Look at their lifestyle. And now, obviously, that is why it's easy for them to really go around seeing vulnerable black kids to say, look, you know what, you want to get rich. You don't have to really work hard. Just go out there and become a comrade, go and influence people, go and give them food parcels and go and tell them how great ANC is giving them pensions and whatever, you know. So it's really very unfortunate, very sad, but I really hope our stop and upstairs, you know, save it. But ultimately, it's us, all of us South Africans, to ensure that within our constitutional framework, we remove that. As long as we have the ANC in power, then now we must also accept the consequences.
Well, I mean, one of the last things I wanted to chat to you about was how do you feel with the youth and correcting black empowerment? What is your position on, firstly, the level of regulation and labor laws in this country and the level of taxation in this country and what it does to young and up-and-coming businesses, starters, that sort of thing?
Well, our regulatory framework in this country, I think in particular, our labor laws. The ANC government, they call themselves the Tripartite Alliance. Tripartite Alliance made out of the so-called ANC, the so-called South African Communist Party, the so-called COSATU. Now look at these three elements with their economic policies. Tell me, do you think South Africa will ever come out with a coherent, clear economic policy? And that is what rating agencies have been raising for many years, to say South Africa, for as long as you don't come up with a coherent, clear economic policy, you're going to have a problem. And it's now with us. And that's something that I've challenged and I will keep on challenging the president to concern himself about people of South Africa, unlike concerning himself with this Tripartite Alliance. Because remember Tito, Minister of Finance, Tito, just over a week ago, after the two rating agencies declared us as a junk status, and it says we've got no option than to go to an IMF and World Bank. Who are the people who objected to this? And the president, and I called on the president to say, Mr. President, please support your Minister of Finance, because you cannot longer, as South Africa, go to normal financial institutions. South Africa, it is not creditworthy any longer. The only people who can assist you is the IMF and the World Bank. And that's not coming from me. I said it's coming from your Minister of Finance, and he needs your support from these vultures who their interest. Because for IMF and the World Bank to give us finance, fortunate enough, it comes out with conditions that does not suit those people. They've got to deal with the rule of law. You've got to deal with corruption. You've got to deal with unfair labor, the prejudice. So, unfortunately, it does not suit the Communist Party and some people in the ANC, led by the Secretary General, Isma Hashuden, and does not really suit the South African the Communist Party and COSATU. Their members are in the same cabinet with the president. Why the president is keeping people who don't agree with progressive economic policies? Because without coming out with those economic policies, the only way South Africa will get the funding is by printing more money, and printing more money, as I said to you, we don't even have to really use horses to go to Zimbabwe. Let's start walking to Zimbabwe, go and get the experience. They can tell us the consequences of printing money, what it entails. So, or otherwise, then we must actually face the consequences. The only way that the IMF fortunate enough, it'll come out with these conditions. I can tell you, are conditions that are in the best interest of majority of South Africans, but it does not obviously suit people who want to.
Yeah. I for one would prefer, instead of printing more money, we sell off sort of institutions like Eskom and SAA. And I would also prefer that we cut some of our restrictive regulations, cut our anti-business tax rate. But that's just my view on things.
Well, look, Odin, we don't have time. I can elaborate, but I've written quite extensively. Look at I've been doing a lot of opinion pieces lately. I mean, to really give an example, for me, if I have the powers, SA Airways, I won't actually sell it. I will give it away. I'll pay someone to take it over. That is how far. Just to give you an example, I'll pay someone to take it over, and obviously, one of the conditions is to ensure that people don't lose jobs, still keep the South African Airways trademark and so forth. Just imagine right now, they've just asked a few days ago, SA Airways asked Minister of Finance for a 10 billion rand and fortunately enough, he's refused of not of finance, of enterprise. Pravin Gordhan, they asked Pravin for a 10 billion rand bailout, and I really hope that he does not take the money, because you can imagine if you take that billion rand, go and into the infrastructure that it requires, when put it into businesses that are struggling, so that post the COVID-19, your system to really get and make sure that people don't really majority of people don't lose jobs working for SA Airways. Now this business will be run by businesses that, with immediate effect, the government will start getting taxes from pay as you earn, because when people work for a private company every month, they get paid, and there's pay as you earn. Government starts getting the money. These businesses will make money every year. They'll make profits. You get profits. And now you direct good money into the development of our infrastructure. If you look at our some of our infrastructure, you were talking about HF would build more universities than the ANC, the national. It's a fact, whether they like it or not. It's a fact. Look at, every time with my family members in Soweto, part of Natal, the train system, I grow up with Soweto from Soweto using trains, reliable, good trains, we had security, we had railway police. So look at the trains that they're using today. The trains that the majority of them were probably bought before even HF became the prime minister of this country. So, it's a shame. You look at the apartheid special planning. I mean, I cannot believe in the last 26 years how the democratic ANC government have actually now put our poor people far away from job opportunities, 70, 80 kilometers away from job opportunities, without providing transport facilities for people to go to work. People in Orange Farm, they've got to use 3-4 taxis, probably working in Midrand or working in Sandton. That look at the trains. How many train accidents have we had since in the last 26 years?
Yeah.
In fact, if I compare it, we must be coming close to India, because I know growing up, train accidents in India used to be quite abnormal. I guess if I look at South Africa, the last 10 years or so, South Africa must have surpassed India in terms of train accidents. And you ask yourself, why is South Africa having so many train accidents? It's because of mismanagement, aging of this infrastructure, non-caring, and so forth. So I think it's another subject for another date.
Mm. Yeah. Ernst, you got anything there?
No. I've asked all my questions, Odin, thank you.
Yeah, I agree with you. We should, sorry, we get a little sound bite there, but yeah, we agree. We should, it is true. Like, as you said, a lot of money was invested in infrastructure, and it is shameful that, HF built more black universities than the ANC had. I actually had a moment like that with my mother some years ago, a couple of years ago, during Fees Must Fall, where she said to me, my mother said to me, I wish that they would, all these people and these entities protesting, I wish that they would put this same amount of energy, instead of trying to tear down Turks, or instead of trying to take Afrikaans away from Stellenbosch, rather put that same energy into building up Fort Hare, put that energy into adding a new...
I studied at TEFLO for 1.5 years, and 1994, when I went to vote, I was excited that universities like TEFLO, the new government is going to make these universities, the TEFLO, Fort Hare and so forth, make them shining examples of black excellence. Where are they today?
Yeah, it's shameful. But
very,
yeah, I think for this session, we thank you for your hour, but I'm out of questions. But if you have any further one last message or anything like that for, especially for the younger audience of our show, about the People's Dialogue and your plans for South Africa, then I hand the stage to you.
Well, thank you very much, I think, for your engagement, and I feel really very privileged. I cannot really wait to officially launch the results of the People's Dialogue. Few things have actually come out that inspired me and keeps on inspiring me to really still have hope for our country. South Africans generally believe in non-racial South Africa, which is really great. People of South Africa believe in free market economy. People of South Africa believe in the rule of law. People of South Africa believe in fighting corruption. People of South Africa believe in us actually the vision of our electoral system, so that they directly elect their public representative, from a councillor to a MP, premier, president. People of South Africa really wants a political party that can ensure that all those things happen. People of South Africa believe in redress. They believe in social justice. South Africans of all colors, they believe we cannot continue being the laughing stock of being the most unequal society in the world. So we need the government that can actually be sensitive to this, so that we don't have Senton and Alexander living side by side and ignoring something like this. People of South Africa, they agree, all of them, to say we need social justice, we need redress, but it must be a redress that is equitable, with a government that is sensitive and ensuring that it's not a patronage network that we've experienced under ANC over the last 26 years.
Mm-hmm. All right, now that makes a lot of sense. I would also just like to take my turn to thank you very much for coming to speak to us, Mr. Mashaba. I know it's even during lockdown, it is definitely still a busy time for a lot of us. And I think now I'll hand over the microphone to Odin so he can conclude this for us.
Yeah, I just want to say again, thank you for having us on. We will, of course, share this with you. And yeah, this has been a pleasure, especially a man of your busyness. I hope to speak to you again soon, maybe in person. And yeah, that's about it. I think this has been one of the most fun episodes of the show, and we very much thank you, Mr. Mashaba.
Thank you very much, and good luck with your initiative.
Thank you. Cheers.
Yeah, we will be putting all the links to all the relevant to your website, to where you can find the No Script Show, to where you can find me and Odin in the description, I'm sure.
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much.
Cool.